This student goes online to search for the easiest way to die. However, he finds an ad for a high-class taxi service with the slogan, "Don't die, take revenge, we will help you." The boy bursts into tears. He picks up the phone to contact the high-end taxi service. However, thinking that it is just a joke, he stops again the next day. The boy struggles to go to school on one leg since the other is broken. However, when he sees the 3 bullies in the class who often bully him in school, he cannot dare to enter the classroom anymore. Instead, he turns around and leaves when he goes to his mother's fish shop. He sees his mother working. She is both mute and deaf and is struggling to invite customers to buy fish with her advertisement board. This scene makes the boy feel even sadder, and he no longer knew who to turn to. He decides to call the taxi service he has just found last night. The person who picks up this phone call is Suncho, the director of the taxi service. He immediately assigns this task to the driver. The taxi driver drives the taxi to meet the customer boy upon reaching. He presses the button to open the car door so the boy can get into the cab. While sitting in the taxi, the boy asks the driver where they are going. The driver immediately tells him that they are going to take revenge. Then the boy begins narrating his tearful story. To this driver, his name is Park Young Men, and he transferred to a new school a few months earlier. During break time, 3 classmates intentionally approach him, making sarcastic remarks about the persistent fishy smell around him, responding calmly. Young Men explains that the smell was because his mother ran a fish shop following that incident. Young Men becomes the continual target of senseless torment from the trio seeking help. He approaches his new teacher. However, instead of support, he receives advice to befriend his bullies, adding insult to injury. The teacher criticizes the fishy smell on Young Men's clothes. As Young Men leads the encounter, he is seized by the 3 bullies who issue threats they force him into to joining them at a karaoke spot. There they subject him to a brutal beating, strip him of his clothes, and steal all his money. On one occasion, when Young Men has nothing to offer, the boys shove him onto the road as he falls on the road. A guy in the group runs his bike over Young Men's leg to make it look like an accident. They did that to get compensation from insurance the next day. This time, Young Men decides to fight back. He reports the incident to the police, however. Instead of solving the case, the police officer only assigns the responsibility to the school violence committee. He then tells Young Men to go home and wait for the committee to take action. Young Men returns home, only to see the bullies having dinner with his mother. They have arrived to give Young Men a warning. They even threaten to stab his mother, leaving him with no other option but to stay silent when the principal inquires about Young Men's injury in the committee meeting. He hesitates. He claims he tripped while playing, concealing the truth out of fear of the bullies, despite his attempt to shield himself for reality. His mother senses something amiss and encourages him to speak up. However, Young Men remains tight-lipped after the bullies apologize for playing recklessly. The principal advises Young Men against taking the matter beyond the school premises, returning to the present. The driver hands Young Men an envelope before dropping him off at a game station inside. He discovers instructions detailing the game number as Young Men starts playing a fairy within the game. Explains the rules while the company works on his request. The taxi meter keeps running. He'll settle the fare once the task is completed. Depending on the circumstances, additional charges might apply. Lastly, Young Men is requested not to disclose the taxi game to anyone else unable to choose what he should do. Young Men decides to leave the place. However, rethinking how the bullies mistreated him, he presses the yes button and gives his consent to take revenge in the underground basement. The taxi service team listens to his story. Suncho remarks that it might not be a big case for them, but for Young Men, it is a matter of life or death. The team member Gooun begins her research and learns about one of the bullies. Suntae, his father, donates money to the school, allowing him to do whatever he wants. The photographs of the bullies are printed out, after which Suncho briefs his team on the project. Though the perpetrators are all minor, it doesn't make their crimes any lighter, so they must carry out the task like any other. The taxi driver Dogy activates his meter and heads to restaurant, initiating the next phase of the operation. There, he intentionally grabs someone else's food and mixes something in it. The food turns out to be that of Young Men's teacher. Dewey apologizes and gives him back his platter. The teacher falls ill because of the mixture, allowing Dogy to apply to the same school as a substitute teacher. Grateful for the timely help, the principal welcomes Dogy and assigns him to teach math, a subject he's not confident in. Upon introduction to the class, Dogy starts the out by taking attendance as predicted. Sun disrupts the class, leading with a casual remark about the pleasant weather outside after the class. Two other bullies, Hyung Sik and Haku, throw empty cans at Dogy and ask him for a favor. One of them asks Dogy if he has a cigarette, to which Doi responds, "How a student can ask his teacher such a question?" S intervenes and begins ridiculing Dogy, saying he is just a part-time worker, not their teacher to teach Dogy a lesson. He slapped his friend and then starts shouting that the new teacher has hit him acting along. Dogy tries to calm them down. However, Sun's behavior worsens, and he grabs Doi's wallet and steals his money with the money. The trio flees from the area, leaving Dogy frustrated, sharing his experience with gooun. Dogy expresses feeling mugged. However, gooun playfully mocks him, highlighting that his own students mugged him later. The day Sun orders HXU to get some goodies as he plans to impress some girls following orders. HXU approaches an elderly woman offering money in exchange for a favor. As minors, they're unable to purchase cigarettes, so they exploit the older woman's assistance. However, instead of fulfilling their promise of payment, Hak hands over his leftover ramen soup and swiftly departs. The trio heads to a club to spend time with their girlfriends. S pulls up the stolen cigarettes. Reveling in the moment, gooun observes their activities through a hidden camera pan, installed by Dogy, curious Go, and questions how they can enjoy with ill-gotten money. Dogy explains the gradual descent of seemingly ordinary teenage boys into a darker path. While the trio enjoys their time, men in black suits approach them. The leader engages with Sunti, who hands over a sum of cash. It is revealed that these boys are more than just bullies. The next day, the friends are smoking cigarettes in the bathroom and bullying another of their classmates while they are threatening him for money. Dogy appears from the toilet room. He pretends to have some work with the student. When S refuses to let the student go, Dogy reminds him that he is their teacher and they must obey him. Despite S's reluctance, Dogy manages to take the student with him at S's house. The team plans to teach Dogy a lesson. S has an idea. The next day, the friends approach the older man to buy cigarettes. Fortunately, the older man has a stash, specifically for students who can't legally purchase them. After obtaining the cigarettes, Haku approaches, Doi claiming that someone's parents are waiting for him in the library. As Dogy leaves, Haku covertly inserts explicit content into Doi's bag, while keeping a watchful eye on the surroundings. Meanwhile, Sun threatens a girl to trap Dogy when she refuses to do that to a teacher. Sun grabs her from her hair and warns her of the consequences of her disobedience. A few moments later, Dogy enters the library and begins finding the parents. However, he couldn't find anyone. Meanwhile, the girl removes her sweater and leaves the Lee library acting like a victim, shouting at the top of her lungs. She draws everyone's attention. When the female teacher asks what has happened to her, the girl accuses Dogy of having her nude photographs in his bag. S is standing there laughing as he sees his plan working. The female teacher takes the girl with her, seeing Dogy as the culprit. On the other hand, the principal receives a call from an unknown number and learns about the incident. He is shocked and infuriated to hear this, while a female teacher is taking the girl to inspect Doi's bag. She insults Dogy. She says she will ensure Dogy won't get to teach again on his way to the teacher's room. Dogy winks at S, adding to the complexity of the situation. Everyone is called to the classroom, where the principal rebukes Dogy for letting something wrong happen during his supervision. When asked, "Where is Sun's seat?" Dogy points it out. Infuriated, the principal dashes towards Sun's seat and begins unloading his bag inside. He finds the dirty magazines and pictures of the girl. Now S is portrayed as the culprit. The female teacher asks the girl what happened in the library, to which the girl responds that there was a bug in her clothes. As the teacher bursts out in rage, at the girl we see Dewey smiling at Sun. A flashback shows how the magazine ended up in Sun's bag. It turns out that when Haku came up to Dogy to call him in the library, something happened. Beyond Haku's imagination, his actions were being recorded by the camera pen Dogy had left on his desk. As he was putting magazine, he was being watched by gooun. She took matters into her own hands and entered the school wearing a uniform, pretending to be a student. She went to the teacher's room and stole the magazine from Dogy's bag. After carefully putting that magazine in Sun's bag, she called the principal and informed him about the pictures. As the truth comes out, The female teacher apologizes to Dogy, who now fake cries to gather her sympathies after getting rebuked by the teacher and the principal. S held his friend responsible for the incident. He accuses his friend of deliberately making a fool out of him. As he starts beating the boy, Haku steps in and instructs him to calm down. However, Sun gets infuriated and holds HXU by the neck, warning him not to intervene in his matters as the trio leaves the school. They witness 2 police officers finding the bag of cigarettes and arresting the older man. It turns out that the old man was selling marijuana when questioned by the police about the sale of cigarettes. The old man identifies the bullies as the buyers. Before the police could catch them, they managed to flee from the scene. The old man is arrested, and to avoid the same fate, the boys dig the ground and bury the cigarettes there the next day. S addresses the class and threatens them, saying, "If anyone talks to the teacher, he will kill them." The class starts, and Dogy says good morning to everyone, but nobody answers him, seeing Sun is playing games. Dogy requests him not to do that in the classroom. However, Sun keeps provoking Dogy, even frustrating him, so he can show violence. Haku keeps recording in order to catch the perfect moment. When Dogy's rage gets out of control, it will help them get rid of Dogy easily. Realizing Sun's game, Dogy announces that they won't study today, but will be watching some videos to everyone's shock. Doi plays the video of the 3 bullies burying marijuana on the mountain. As the trio was shocked to see the video, Dogy turns off the TV, saying it was a mistake. After the school ends, the bullies ask Dogy about the video. Dogy responds that he went to the mountain to capture the beautiful view and found them burying the cigarette, so he videotaped them. The boys keep explaining that they don't smoke weed. Dogy keeps playing along and assures them he won't reveal their secret to anyone. Later, the bullies head to the mountain and begin digging the ground, but they cannot find weed anywhere at that moment. S receives a call from Dogy, who reveals that he handed the weed to the police. He asserts his responsibility as a citizen. Yet Dogy reassures Sun that he didn't disclose any information regarding him, as Dogy persistently taunts Sun with a mix of sweetness and underlying negativity. Sun finds himself feeling helpless in the face of the situation. The next day, Dogy continues to irritate Sun, demanding that he bring food for him. When Sun declines, Dogy uses the previous weed incident as leverage, threatening to expose him if he doesn't comply, fearing the consequences. Sun reluctantly does whatever Dogy asks to add to Sun's for frustration. Dogy even instructs him to keep the change for himself, further fueling his anger. The trio searches on the internet and finds that having wheat is illegal, and they can end up in jail for 5 years, scared to spend their lives in prison. Sun calls Dogy and gives him death threats as the trio returns home. They are shocked to see Dogy playing games with S's father. S is scared about getting exposed in front of his father. Later, Dogy enters Sun's room and makes himself comfortable on the bed. He then asks the trio for money, 1.5 million each, if they tell anyone about it. Dogy threatens to inform the cops about the weed possession. Sunti agrees to fulfill his demand, but he puts a condition: he will decide date and time after Dogy leaves. Sun calls someone for help in the afternoon. Dogy finds young men and encourages him to return to school starting next week. He's worried that skipping might become a habit that's hard to break. As a gesture of care, Dogy offers young men some food afterwards. Young Men assists his mother in closing up their shop. When asked about the food, Young Men discloses that his homeroom teacher was a generous giver on their journey home. Young Nin's mother affectionately holds his hand, expressing her unwavering love for her son. The following day, Dogy arrives at the school's rooftop and discovers a swarm of men dressed in black suits taking over the area as he proceeds to get the money. Gooun asks if they should set it up, to which Dogy says yes. A clash erupts between Dogy and the man with agility. Dogy evades each assailant, targeting their leader, directly witnessing their leader under attack. The men retaliate, however they prove no match for Dogy's combat skills, while Dogy is engrossed in combat. Sun attempts a sneak attack from behind. However, when Dogy senses the impending attack, Sun freezes, unable to make a move. Dogy continues to showcase his extraordinary prowess, swiftly neutralizing every thug in his path. When a thug tries to attack him with a flower pot, Dogy swiftly leaps, shattering the pot in midair. The trio stands stunned by Dogy's unforeseen abilities. After clearing the area of the man, Dogy shifts his focus to Sun. As Dogy proceeds towards him, Sun takes a step back, However, soon there is no place for him to move back. Dogy tells him that he cannot gather the courage to jump, but still he pushes the people and hurts them. With that said, Dogy kicks him, sending Sun off the rooftop as he focuses his attention on the other boys. They begin apologizing, begging Dogy to spare their lives because of the fear they even pee their pants. When Dogy brings up young men's name, the duo was stunned. The next thing we know, they surrender themselves to the police, telling the officer how they bullied their friends. They urge the officer to lock them up, as they don't want to end up like Sun. It seems like Dogy has taught them a good lesson, and they won't threaten, bully, or beat anyone, ever again. Later, Dogy enters a bakery shop where he has kept someone. That someone is none other than Sun. It turns out that when gooun asks Doi to set something up, she was talking about the giant inflatable bed. After he said yes, two of the team members, Kanggu and Jin, inflated the bed. When Sing fell, he landed straight on the bed. Because of the fear, he went unconscious. Dogy contacts the gangster Sun, whom he encountered on the rooftop, and lets him have a conversation with S. Instead of assistance, the man issues a warning advising S not to contact him again, and to listen to his teacher. S' shock deepens upon hearing young men's name. Dogy informs him that everything he eats is on young men, but anything he can't finish, he'll have to pay for. Furthermore, each pastry will cost him an amount equal to compensating young men for all the physical and emotional harm he caused. Sun apologizes, saying that he doesn't have any money. This is when Dogy reveals that he has found a job for him by working there. Sun can quickly settle his debts. Then don't warn Sun that if he tries to escape, he'll catch him and make him cough up 10 times more, confused about his situation. Sunta receives advice from Dogy to recall the emotions of the students he once bullied. What he's going through now is payback. To mark this fresh start, Doi grabs a cake, lights it, and celebrates Sun's new beginning. Afterwards, Dogy meets young men, handing him the receipt for the deluxe taxi service. When young men expresses concern over the high cost, Dogy advises him to pay whatever he can. Monthly, it will make him even stronger. Grateful for Dogy's guidance, young men thanks him and exits the taxi. Meanwhile, Sunchel approaches young men's mother, revealing that his organization has awarded young men a scholarship upon graduation in college entry. The firm will cover his fees and expenses. Overwhelmed with emotion, young men's mother repeatedly thanks Sunchul for this generous scholarship. With young men's life returning to normal and a brighter future ahead, he returns to school. In his tax, Dogy keeps an eye out, ensuring everything's okay. Just like that, the deluxe taxi keeps playing a crucial role in helping people seek revenge and reclaim their lives. Meanwhile, we see a woman named Maria crying. She is injured, and it seems like she is ready to end her life as she stands on the other side of the railing. Her slipper falls into the river, scaring her even more. She keeps crying while saying that she doesn't want to die. Just then, her eyes are laid on the deluxe taxi service, ad saying, "Don't die, take revenge." Maria calls the number, and Dogy arrives to pick her up soon. Maria asks him where they are going to, which Dogy responds that they are going to take revenge. He then turns on the audio recorder and asks Maria what has happened to her. A flashback shows that Maria is an orphan and is intellectually disabled. It means she is 18 years old, but her mental age is around 1st to 2nd grade. As she was old enough to find a job, she bid farewell to her friends, who had pitched in to buy a goodbye gift for her. Soon, a social worker picks her up from the church and informs her about her new job. She will be working in a factory and dealing with computer work. Maria is really excited, as she always dreamed about doing a job to buy gifts for her friends. Approaching there, she signed a contract that she didn't read at first. Everything went well. Even the manager, John Gunn, was very polite and understanding with her. Maria even shared with him how skilled she was in Excel. After the meeting ended, the social worker left the factory. Jangoon showed Maria around, and after the tour ordered her to descale the fish. Confused, Maria said that her work is related to computers, still polite. JN Gunn assured her that he would give her computer work after that. However, Maria denied, saying that she was afraid of fish. Just then, the factory owner Juan arrived upon, hearing that Maria wasn't ready to work. He grabbed her from hair and submerged her head in the fish water. He then asked her if she was still afraid of fish. He then slapped Maria really hard, knocking her to the ground. He doesn't stop there. He begins hitting Maria with random objects. They intensify their torture by putting Maria in a drum with a freezing temperature to decrease the temperature further. Juan adds a bunch of salt and then closes the lid again with a sack. What they did next was even more horrifying. They opened the drum after a while and poured hot water on Maria. Waking her up after enduring so much torture, Maria agreed to work for Juan. She would cry while describing the fish. One night Maria tried to escape, and she did succeed. She found a police officer on her way and urged for help. The police officer turned out to be corrupt as he took her back to Ju-chan's factory, where she was tortured again. They put her in the lid while the police officer and Ju-chan had dinner together. Instead of helping the girl, the police officer splashed water on her already freezing body. He told her not to run away, but to consider the factory as her home and work there without creating trouble to the distress. He made it clear he wouldn't rescue her in the future to make matters worse. John Gunn later called Maria into another room and subjected her to sexual assault. This horrifying experience led Maria to attempt suicide. After being taken to the hospital, she managed to escape and headed to a bridge with the intention of taking her own life once again. In the present day, Dogy drops her off at the game station and rides away with the instructions in her hand. Maria begins playing the game. The screen shows if she wants to take revenge on the manager and the boss. Maria presses the revenge button, allowing all the team members to get the message that there is a mission ahead. They immediately leave their work and arrive at the underground area to discuss the mission. Kangoo requests Go to change their pager, as it seems old, and he wants to switch to a smartphone. However, gooun responds that smartphones are a bit risky, so they must stick to the pager. Soon the team gathers to listen to Maria's story. Suncho pinned the photographs of Juch and John Gunn to the board. He tells the team how the duo was known as a hard-working businessman in the community. They are helped by the police officer. That's why it is easier for them to cover up their crimes. Hearing her heart-wrenching story, gooun decides that they should immediately expose those businessmen. Other team members also agree with her. And just like that, another mission begins. Dogy hops into his taxi, sneaking out from the underground building. Meanwhile, gooun, Kangoo, and Gan prepped their van, turning it into a food spot to infiltrate the factory. Doi also scopes out the factory, checking its ins and outs later that night. When Chuch-chan and Junun get hungry, they grab a pamphlet of the chicken spot that Kinu and Jin gave them earlier. Jaenun thanks for the fast delivery, unaware that he has fallen right into their trap. Little do they know the deluxe service team has spiked the food with sleeping powder. As a result, Dogy scales the factory wall and slips inside, thanks to the stive-laced chicken. Juan and John Gunn are peacefully asleep. With precision, Dogy inserts a USB into JN Gunn's phone, granting gooun access to all the crucial data. Dogy finds a safe in one of the rooms and asks for Go's help to unlock it. With the data recovered from the phone, gooun manages to come up with the code. Dogy enters the code, but finds nothing in the safe, returning to the living area. Dogy picks up JN Gunn's phone, only to find wrongly taken photographs of Maria. The discovery fuels Dogy's desire for revenge on her behalf. Even more, the next day, Dogy takes on the guise of a customer entering the factory grounds. While he is exploring, Xuan intercepts him and inquires about his arrival. Sporting an innocent smile, Dogy claims to be in search of seafood. Guiding him to his office, Juan offers coffee. Soon John Gunn joins, and they talk business in the conversation. Dogy expresses interest in purchasing 50 drums of seafood to prove his credibility. He unveils his briefcase, displaying the money at his disposal. Spotting the cash, the greed of the duo kicks in, prompting them to propose a deal for 50 drums in 2 days. Dogy must make a 50% advance payment. Accepting the terms, Dogy seals the agreement with a signature, unaware of the impending twist. Juan and JN Gunn enthusiastically confirm the order. Unfortunately, half of the drums turn out to be infested with maggots. Ju-chan assigns John Gunn the task of sorting and dispatching these tainted drums to schools and the military. Furthermore, it's revealed that they're importing this fish internationally, rebranding it domestically with a Made in Korea label to inflate profits. Kangoo and Jae and manage to hear their conversation, allowing them to learn about their deceit. Later on, JN Gunn vents to the insurance worker. Jun suck about Maria. He insists on bringing someone less likely to escape his comments. Displease Young-suk, and she advises JN Gunn not to be overly selective. Xuan steps in, reminding her that if she's claiming 15% of their profits, she needs to execute her role efficiently. During their discussion about Maria, Jun-suk disclosed that Maria had contacted her once before, and that she might contact her again. She asserts that as soon as she pinpoints Maria's whereabouts, she'll inform Juan additionally. Even in the event of Maria's demise, there's a 400 million insurance policy with Chuch-chan as the beneficiary in both scenarios. They stand to benefit, unknown to them. Their entire conversation is overheard by the deluxe service team courtesy of the bug discreetly installed by Dogy Gooun, reveals that Junuk has enrolled Maria in 10 insurance programs. Half of her monthly wage was used to pay her plans. Maria wasn't aware of this, as she never got paid pretending to be a customer. Sunchul visits the insurance company and asks to meet Young-suk after hearing about the insurance plans. Sunchul leaves the office saying that he will visit again, as Young-suk is waiting for a taxi outside the office. Sunchel offers her a ride when asked if he's decided on the insurance. Sunchul suggests discussing it during the ride, as he's in a hurry. Agreeing, Young-suk enters the car, only for Kang-gu to render her unconscious with a taser. They tape her mouth and disguise her with a hat to conceal her identity upon waking up. Young-suk pleads for her life, insisting she's merely a social worker. Sunchul calmly informs her they're taking her to the factory, promising decent treatment despite her protests. Kang-gu incapacitates her once more with the taser, as she continues to scream. Meanwhile, Jae-gon lines up 50 barrels of seafood. However, on his way to the factory, a masked man, likely Dogy, intercepts him, armed with a wrench from the truck. Jae-gon engages in a showdown with Dogy. Unfortunately, things take a turn for the worse, as Dogy sends him flying through the air, crashing back down with a nasty neck injury. With the shipman still in limbo, Dogy drops a bombshell on the greedy duo. He places another order for 20 barrels, warning that this time, if they miss the deadline, he will hit them with a double penalty for breaching the contract. Once Chuan seals the deal, Dogy makes his exit. Chuan dials Officer Kim, who has discovered Maria's whereabouts. As Officer Kim rushes, Dogy follows him discreetly. He fixes a metal frame to the front of his taxi and rams it into Officer Kim's car, maneuvering the frame into the vehicle and forcing it off course. With a twist of the steering wheel, Officer Kim's car catapults into the air, crashing down. Dogy swiftly retrieves a black box from the officer's vehicle and vanishes from the scene. Meanwhile, Maria joins Suncho's taxi company, taking on computer tasks. Gooun acknowledges Maria's skills and excel during their conversation. Maria takes a pill when asked. She discloses that Junun gave her the pills for strength. Curious about the pills, Gooun takes them for examination. Subsequently, she contacts Dogy, revealing that Junggun had been giving Maria birth control pills. Dogy's making a move to swipe those DRS again on Junggun's way back to the factory. DOI blocks his path, but this time Junun isn't alone. He's brought back up. It turns into a scuffle between DOI and the guys. DOI is pretty slick with his kicks and punches, gaining the upper hand. Junun tries to attack, but DOI stops him and keeps landing punches until Junggun hits the ground. While all this is happening, Juchan calls Junun but has no luck. Dogy got Junun and tied him to a pole. At first, Junun yells for help, but then it sinks in that Doi's the one behind this mess. Meanwhile, Dogy gets a call from Ju-chan, who mentions the guy he sent to fetch the drums has gone missing. He promises Dogy 70 drums by tomorrow. Dogy warns. If he doesn't get them, there will be a price to pay with that he hangs up, leaving Chuch-chan worried sick to dodge the penalty. Chuch-chan hits the internet to hunt down some seafood drums, but with Gooun keeping an eye on his search history, she steps in pretending to be a seller and takes the order. Kang-gu and Jin play the role of delivery guys, dropping off the drums at Ju-chan's factory. They can't resist poking fun at Juan, wondering why a seafood factory needs to buy seafood from other sellers. Once the duo splits, Juan heads back into the factory only to bump into Doi. Curious, Juan asks who he is, and Dogy coolly declares himself as their seafood thief. A brawl breaks out between the two, armed with a stick. Ju-chan tries to strike, however Dogy out, muscles him, lifting and slamming him against the wall. Xuan attempts a comeback, but Dogy proves too formidable. In the heat of the clash, Dogy's mask slips, exposing his identity to Juan. Infuriated, Juan lashes out, labeling Dogy as scumbag, and launching an attack, dodging the blows. Dogy delivers a powerful punch, sending Juan crashing to the floor in a tense moment. Dogy questions Ju-chan's morality, calling him out for exploiting people with disabilities. He points out how Juan makes them work like dogs, and assaults him daily, with Ju-chan's face bloodied. Dogy seizes him by the hair and submerges his head in water, Mirroring the cruel act Juan once inflicted on Maria, he then kicks him out of the factory and locks him up in the drum. He is being treated just like he treated others with Juan and Junun. Out of the picture, the team steps up to determine the company's future. Sunchul proposes a plan where the company's earnings directly benefit disabled employees. Turns out Chuchcha had manipulated things and registered the company under a disabled worker's name, making it simpler for some CH to transition ownership to the employees with disabilities to cover the taxi fare. The team sells the drums and manages to gather the necessary funds. As the mission wraps up, Maria receives a heartwarming surprise from her orphanage friends. They have the toys she always wanted to buy for them. Stepping outside the factory, she spots a deluxe taxi driving away, revealing Dogy's kind gesture. He's the one who bought the gifts for the kids.